Thank you, thank you. So I have two questions for the people up front, and then I would love to hear from y'all in the audience for any of our questions for the filmmakers, so start thinking about them, okay? Now, this walk is about community, and we had multiple different aspects of it. So I would love to know what community resources you used when making this story. Start with this team. Oh, and also, please say your name and what film you're associated with.
My name's Carlo, and this is Luisa with Direcciones.
Hi.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess with our film, we talked a lot with like the elders in our community and just people who are older than us and had stories. So, like long conversations with my grandparents on their dinner table, and like even when we would take a cab, we would ask them about addresses that they had used in the past, and that was like the communal knowledge that we used.
So name and association with the project, and then what community resources you used while making this talk.
My name's Danya Apt. I made the film 74 Messages Sent and Received, the text film with the text. Yeah, this is, it's a really contained film, and so the resources, that I drew upon, it's built off of, obviously, a text communication between myself and a, family member by choice, a neighbor's family member, and then some communication with other neighbors. So it was really sort of cobbled together from available sort of ephemera from this time. And then I used my husband, pulled him out of cinematography retirement to shoot on 16 millimeter. We shot it with a camera that we had in the house, 16 millimeter camera. And another resource was a filmmaker community, who I sort of brought this film to, and was like, is this a thing? Like, does this feel like a film? Is this a story? So.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dara, and I've also lost my voice. I directed Empress Nicole the Great. Firstly, I want to thank Doc NYC for having us, and for audiences for coming to support film and documentary film. We wouldn't be here without you. Thank you. I think all filmmaking is very collaborative. I have part of my team here that I also want to give thanks to. Sarah, who produced, Chris, who edited, and Empress Nicole, who's in the film. I was introduced to the community through a friend, Ben, who brought me into the Imperial Court. And I was warned that Nicole could be a little feisty, so I knew it was important to earn her trust. And if I earned her trust and her respect, we would be welcomed with open arms into the community. So it was a little twofold of being invited in and being part of the court, and also using our filmmaking resources. Part of it was filming during COVID, so we had some remote shoots that we had to work with as well, and then bringing it all together.
Ramin Barani, I'm the filmmaker behind the last film about healthcare. And, the community we had some local people in Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, but predominantly was the two doctors in the health wagon. They were the ones that opened access to all the people we met. And because they had trust in the doctors, they immediately would trust us as filmmakers to come in and hear their stories.
Hi, my name is Shelby Adams, and I wrote and directed the Bingo film. And on my end, I used my whole community because we're situated right in Canada, US, 2 provinces and New York State. So I used my whole community. I used part of my family, my daughter who's here, she's a cinematographer. And we used our elders, historians, all the businesses that sell the bingo cards, our wonderful radio station, and just anyone who wanted to participate and be a part of the film. We were just a 2-man crew because of COVID, and then we put the film together, and it was my thesis film for Toronto Film School. So yeah. So thank you for having us.
Thank you for making your film. Feel free to hold the mic. I will take it all the way back down. One more question for me, and then I hope to hear from y'all. So I ask this question all the time because I'm always so interested in the answer. One thing about shorts is that it is about brevity and it's also about depth. So what did we not get to see in your documentary?
Oh, that's a good question because there was a lot of, it was actually 15 minutes when we initially did it and I had to cut it right down, a lot of the fat. So there was a lot of things you didn't get to see in it. There was more in-depth stories about residential schools and Indian day school systems. I was in the Indian day school system myself, and that was traumatic. And there was also a lot of traumatic storylines in there that I had to pull back out as well. And also a lot of worries were because I touched a lot of base, like I touched base on like so many traumatic things, and I didn't want people to walk away in my film knowing or being sad. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to end this, I want people to laugh on the way out because I don't want people to be traumatized. And that's a big thing for me and my culture is I don't want our trauma to be the front and center. So I wanted to end it in a happy note, but a lot of those interviews I had to cut out for timing issues, unfortunately, but yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Our film was put together with ITVS, so there was a very strict, it was, the editor Lily's here, it was 24:15.
Shout out to editors.
Yeah, it's like not even one frame more. So probably the most interesting thing that we didn't get to put in the film is the two female doctors that are in the health wagon. One of them does Botox also, not just on herself, but yes, not just on herself, but also for the women in that region. And I talked to her about it, and she's like, well, they have nothing else. They're often, down and out, and they're depressed, and their husbands are out of work or, gone. And so she was like, I want them to feel beautiful and feel amazing about themselves. So she would do Botox. And we really wanted it in the film, but we already have Paranormal Activity that's so out of left field that we didn't have room for it. But in the longer version, it would have been there.
Wow, I'm glad I asked this question.
I don't have a great Botox story, but speaking of community, there were so many interviews that we had with empresses and emperors and part of the community. There's like over 70 chapters across U.S., Canada, Mexico, and it just felt that if we included some of the backstories of the other people featured, we wouldn't get to know any of them at all. We'd be able to spread out, so we focused on Nicole, who's queen of all queens and kind of oversees the whole imperial court.
I think there's everything that you don't see in this film, and I think that's why I was attracted to working with this material. I'm an editor, and so I like to pare things down and make scaffold and then build and then shave it down again. But it was so the material that I started with, I kind of just wanted to stay with that, and I think it's really limited. You don't really you kind of get to know a little bit the space between two people or between that small community, but there's a lot that's not there, and I kind of liked that scarcity and that bareness.
Yeah, there's like a lot that didn't end up in this one. I feel like we're kind of wacko filmmakers, especially when we work together. And this film began as a series of letters that we wrote back and forth during the pandemic. That's where the voiceover came from, and we just kind of expanded and expanded and expanded until we had like a wildly unwieldy 35-minute cut that was really corny and bad. So we had a whole section about the guy who did all the mapping of streets for Waze in Costa Rica, which was wonderful, but we had to cut that out. We had a ton of voiceover that we cut out. Anything else?
And another kind of communal resource that we use is the amazing archives of Costa Rica that people have kept up, and I do wish I could make like a 4-hour film just of those archives. They're beautiful, and I feel so grateful to come from a country that cared about preserving those images.
Beautiful. Great stories. I would love to hear from the audience. Does anyone have any question for our lovely folks in the front? We have a lot of shy folks this time. Yes.
I have a question for the actresses film. What was the reasoning behind the use of that, like, almost like CGI looking, like, map of the mountains that almost looks like a map overlaying on the city?
So this is for the addresses team. What was the decision behind using the CGI and animations for the actual film?
Yeah, we were thinking a lot about, well, in that section we're thinking a lot about kind of the politics of addresses and like how they sort of correspond to different ideas about community, and in the voiceover we're talking about like the kind of the mangrove logic of addresses in Costa Rica versus like a more individualistic idea of like a GPS system, or even like saying 348 Waverly Street, like it's custom for you as an individual. So I think we just liked those images because they felt kind of like mangrove roots, like this huge root tree system under the city that linked everything, and it just kind of felt like visually resonant with the idea.
Thank you for your question. Do you have another audience question? I have yes, right here. I love it.
I have a question for Danya. But first I just want to say all of the films were amazing, so congratulations. So I know you're an editor, so I was wondering, like, the text that you used, were there a lot more text? Like, did you whittle down a conversation, or were those like almost all of the text?
So this is a question for Danya. How did you decide what text to include, especially considering your job as an editor?
Yeah, there were a lot more. There were many texts, and I think I chose them on the basis of, maybe initially time, or kind of how long that would hold interest, and then kind of went back and sort of dialed up. I think at an early screening, people didn't really understand maybe what the relationship was, thought we were just live nearby, transactional, so it was sort of dialing these things up, like dialing up the humor, dialing up the familiarity, sort of tweaking things and until it landed in the right place. A lot of text.
Thank you for that question. Another question, yes, in the middle.
I also thought they were all like really amazing work. I have a question for Ramin. Would you want to make a longer version since you were limited to 25 minutes, 40 seconds?
Did everybody hear the question?
Did I want to make a long, I mean,
Because I really would love to see that women do both.
I too, I second that. I want to see the Botox.
Well, I make also fiction films, so initially I was looking at that landscape as a fiction movie, and I got sidetracked making a different film in India, and then I hooked up again with Gigantic Pictures. We've done, like, from Goodbye Solo to now, we made like 4 films together, and I was like, oh, let's do it as a doc. But now that I see it as a doc, I don't know if I want to make a longer doc, but I want to go back to do the fiction story. And a screenwriter friend of mine that I always wanted to work with saw it, and then a week later he's like, I can't stop thinking about those people. What do you think about a fiction film? I said, oh my God, just write it. So maybe, we'll see.
Yeah, it's so rich.
Will you have same characters, 2 ladies driving?
Well, my buddy that, I said my buddy, but it's like this guy I admire since I was, like, I stole so many things from my movie Chomp Shop from that writer, and he wants to use one of the women but change one to someone else. Actually, he wants to make one of them weirdly he said he wanted to make one of them a nun. That he had encountered some people like that in Nicaragua when he was down there with the Sandinistas in that time period. And he was like, they're religious, but they don't seem to really function within a religious context. They're just out there, and they're fierce, and they're political, and they're hard. And then I said, how funny, because we actually talked with a nun down there who had a health wagon 3 times the size of the one you see in the film, and she was only this tall. And I was like, oh, that's the movie, this small woman and this giant wagon. But she wasn't talkative, she didn't do the Botox, she didn't smile, she wouldn't tell me anything about herself at all. But weirdly, this writer friend of mine somehow channeled that woman that didn't make it into the documentary. So.
Do people pay for the service? For the truck?
They could donate $10, but no, they don't have to pay. And the women are like, they're so sophisticated because, and they're dedicated, like they're best friends since kids, but they understand what they need to do to market themselves to get funding to keep doing what they're doing. You know, and now we're hoping to get the film in front of people that could, my hope would be that these, I hope everyone's hope would be they wouldn't be necessary. You know, that's the goal, is that they would become obsolete, but at the moment they're generating their own financing through support, you know.
Do they have families?
Well, they've gotten rid of their men, but a lot of the women there seem to have gotten rid of the men, or their men wander off. I mean, yeah.
Wow. Well, I want to give another round of applause to our amazing directors for coming here today.